Welcome back to The Inspired Entrepreneur with Heather Hope. Hey everyone, it's Heather Hope. Welcome back. So, as you can see, this is a bonus episode. And today's bonus episode is going to be how I basically cured my 20-year suicidal depression. So, I've done one bonus episode in the past on how I manifested my amazing husband. So if you are in the market for love and how to attract an amazing person, go watch that. It's in red for love. So, okay, so this topic came up. I think it was, let's see, I'm recording this on Sunday. Today is November 15th of 2020. And it came up, I think it was yesterday, in a Facebook group, in a Abraham Facebook group. And somebody was talking about seeing her therapist, and I chimed in, and I wasn't negative about therapy. I was just like, they kind of don't mix, law of attraction and counseling and therapy and all that. Kind of don't mix. So, but then I left another comment saying, well, even though what I said, I have cured my 20-year major depression, suicidal depression, and after I left my career as a therapist and went into law of attraction. It's funny because I thought I had recovered after I left my job. I I was struggling a lot. And after my divorce, I struggled a lot. I was married with my first husband, so I struggled. That was the hardest time of my life, was during that relationship, and about a year or so after it. It was the worst time. So even though the previous many years were really hard, it just got worse. So basically, I attracted somebody at, vibrationally at a time I shouldn't have. If you're looking for a partner, go listen to that one too, because it's really important to feel good and be in a really good place in order to attract a really good person, right? Law of attraction, right? So, okay, so let's get to today's subject. This is a subject that before I became a law of attraction coach or law of attraction business coach, which I don't call myself anymore. I'm just a teacher. I'm a writer and a speaker. So, before I became a law of attraction coach, I was a depression coach. And let me tell you why that does not work. Whatever you talk about, and I understand that now better than, this is why I don't talk about the subject very often. When I do, it's like within, a few seconds of talking about it, maybe a minute at the most, because I understand vibration now, and I understand activating vibration with what you focus on. So when you focus on the negative things about your life, or things that you have, quote unquote, overcome, or from your past, whatever it is, right? This reminds me, I don't know if you know, I love TikTok. It's like my little, it's not guilty, it's just my little pleasure that, now that sounds weird. I find like the most comedy. It's so freaking hilarious. TikTok's hilarious. So anyway, there was this one girl on there who was talking about something about her past and something. And she had not thought about it in a very long time. Very long time. And something like made her think about it, or somebody asked her something, and she started talking about something. And she started tearing up. And she's like, gosh, I haven't thought about this in years and I haven't had this reaction in here, you know? And I'm sitting here like, that's law of attraction. Oh, my dear. Because if you bring up something, and so if you bring up something that the last time, you know, you brought it up, you were tearing up and it was painful, it's going to do that again. So in in the psychology world and the coaching world, which needs to stop, but about it, I find there's two lanes. There's psychology and there's coaching, and coaching swerves all over the lanes of psychology, and they shouldn't. They should back off because because it requires a shit ton of education and licensing to become a therapist or be a psychologist or anything like that. So there's a lot more there. Um, anyway, just my 2 cents. Um, since I've been on both sides of the fence and now I don't want any part of the fence, I'm like, you guys got this. You know, you guys can go talk amongst each other and vent and all that stuff. So, oh, where was I going with this? See, I had the sidetracking. So, whenever you bring it up and talk about it, whenever you talk about something that was painful in the past or has that touchy, it's a touchy subject for you, whenever you bring it up and bring it out and talk about it, you're going to have the same reaction. Oh, this is what I was saying. And it has nothing to do with, oh, well, you still have, you know, some stuff there and you have to release that and you have to work through it and there's processes and all of that. It's not that. It's not that. It's not that. And I will, you know, I was going to say, I was going to challenge anybody who, no, I don't care anymore. I am so practicing staying in my bubble and not having any stuff go on. I'm not challenging people anymore. I'm not, because it throws me out of the vortex. And I have to tell you, being in the vortex is the best feeling in the world. Actually, setting intentions, setting goals, and accomplishing them like in record time because you're in the vortex, nothing is worth coming out of the vortex. Nothing. Not challenging somebody's beliefs, which you're not going to win. Now we've learned that in this last presidential, you know, election. It's like you're not going to change anybody's mind. I'm probably not going to change anybody's mind who is like really into therapy. I'm not going to, and I don't even care because that's their journey, right? They're following their path. It's none of my business. So anyway, so it has nothing to do with releasing the past because there's no releasing. Abraham teaches us that there's no releasing of anything. You can't release it. You have nothing to release. It's all you have is your attention. Whatever you put your attention on, which is, remember, we said, you guys know this, whatever you put your eyesight on, your eyeballs on, your ears listening to, your mind thinking about, and your mouth talking, whatever you put all of that stuff on is what you're going to get. So we have memories, and we think memories sometimes that are painful. Now, this is what I kind of, in my mind, I think of it as this is the adult part of our brain, of ourselves, that has to come in like a parent and say, hey, Heather, you need to not think about that. You need to go think about something else. That's more helpful. That's it. That's it. I've had people over the years tell me they are unable to do that. And I'm like, and when I was a therapist, I used to say, oh, yeah, I understand. It's hard. And oh, it's just blah, blah, blah. Now I'm like, I see no excuse. I see no excuse. You have to be an adult and practice self-discipline. I'm not talking to anybody here. So if I say you have to, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But be the self-discipline side of you that's like, hey, that's a painful, touchy subject. If you really don't have to talk about that right now, how about you don't? because what will happen is whatever you put your attention on is what you're going to, that's the road you're going to go down, right? You get into your car and you put your attention on turning right, you turn right, and you put your attention on that road, that's where you're going. If you put your attention to the left and keep your attention to the left, you have to end up turning because you're going to crash if you don't. So there's none of that. So leave it. Okay. There's a few things, like I've had discussions with some of my clients of, I had this vision of being like this really top, self-help, I don't even like that word, law of attraction teacher, coach, whatever. But in the marketing world, they always say, use your story, talk about where you came from all the time, basically. Come up with your story. You hear these gurus, right? And their story. Like they have like 5 stories that they tell. And you've heard it like a freaking million times. I have unfollowed everybody. You guys know that. But like as many as I can, I still get too many emails. But it's like you've heard the same story 100 times in the last year. And you're like, God, stop telling the same story. It's so boring. But like, that's exactly what I don't want to do. I don't want to do that. And when they're interviewed, and this is what gets me too, when they're interviewed, the interviewer asks all these questions like, oh, where have you come from? And, oh, tell us your experiences of blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm looking at this. So for this past 6 months or so, I've been looking at where a career in this could take me traditionally. And you know what I have decided now, granted, I don't know. I have a huge feeling that since I turned my attention to writing and doing this podcast, everything I do right at this point is just for fun. Literally, it's for fun. I don't do this for any particular outcome because I've learned from Bashar, take out the outcome, do it for the pleasure, for the fun. I've created another business that I'm working on that is guaranteed to make money. So all of this stuff now is just my passion project. It's like, even though the other business is kind of fun too, but this is like where a lot of my knowledge is. And I like sharing it, and I like teaching it, and I like talking and writing about it. I truly believe at this point, because I've been pre-paving this for a while, for a couple of years. I remember writing about it. I just want to write and speak. Coaching has been on and off, kind of a burnout for me. And I understand why now. This whole vibration thing really wears on a coach or a therapist or whoever. It really throws you off. So I truly believe that, I'm going to have this whole side career of writing, of being this law of attraction writer, teacher type of person. Now, what I don't want is to be that person who's interviewed all the time and to, share my story of overcoming my depression and all of that, because I have watched some very, very popular law of attraction teachers or manifestation teachers. You guys have heard of them. I'm gonna think of one person in particular. I'm not gonna say her name because I'm not gonna do that. But there's one in particular that when I actually hear her speak or hear about what she had been going through more recently, like between books, between things, like if she speaks or is interviewed, she's struggling. She's struggling emotionally. And it's because, and she's a big Abraham Hicks fan, which there's a disconnect. There's a lot of disconnection with Abraham Hicks fans, a lot of them. And she's one of those people that has to talk about the stories and where she came from and her her addiction issues and all of that. Like she rehashes it all the time. All the time. Now, she may be very successful, but she's struggling. She's struggling, okay? I had this talk with a client of mine because she's like, well, these people seem to be successful. I'm like, yeah, they are, but they're also struggling. You can hear it. You can hear that, another thing that they've overcome recently. You know what I mean? Like, and so what I have decided, because of my 20 years of suicidal depression, just meaning I had suicidal thoughts nearly every single day of those 20 years. Nearly. Pretty much every day. Just the thoughts. That's a sucky way to live. And I will never go back there again. And so I make choices based on how I want to feel. And so looking forward, going the path that I had envisioned, I decided not to go down. I don't want to be interviewed all the time. I don't want to be famous because I overcame something or whatever. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want that because I understand vibration and I'm not going to sit here over and over and over and talk about my story. So that's why I wanted to do it like one time in a podcast episode. And if anybody asked me, how did you overcome depression or whatever, I'd be like, here. How did you manifest your husband? Here. How did you do this? Here. Just listen to these podcast episodes. So I don't have to rehash, like, especially the negative ones. This is the only one, pretty much. I mean, the manifesting my husband, I had to go into, a little bit of the past of the type of guys that I was attracting, my ex-husband, all that stuff. So there was a little bit there. But I have learned when I have had discussions with people that were lengthy about my past, I ended up going back to a place emotionally that was not fun. It was pretty hard. So that was a long road here. So let's just get started. This may be long, but I hope I hope what I've said so far is helpful. You just have to, first of all, you have to make your happiness and your emotions the most important thing. And I said that long ago, that I put myself in a bubble. Like I put my, what did I used to tell? I used to tell my clients years ago, something about a bubble. Started back then. Anyway, let's get started. So, I grew up, let me think. What do I want to say? I thought about like writing some points out. And so right before I clicked record, I just said a few things. I'm like, I trust that what comes out needs to come out. I trust who needs to hear it will hear it. I trust that everything that comes out is what needs to be said. So there we are. Okay, so I grew up in Phoenix, and my grandmother raised me. My grandmother raised me because both my parents were unable to take care of me. My mother is severely mentally ill, very, very severely. And my father, they were both a month away from being 19 when I was born. So they were both 18, 19. Anyway, my mother couldn't take care of me. I haven't seen her in years, but she was a rapid cycling, manic, bipolar, schizophrenic, schizoaffective, all of that stuff. Like the worst case I've ever seen. And that was my clientele for 10 or more years, was the severely mentally ill. That's actually what I went into. That's quite funny, right? And so anyway, so my grandmother raised me. And when I was 8 years old, my mom, like she was in and out of my life. Like she was always around actually. She was always around, but because she couldn't take care of herself very well. And she was just like all over the place, dating men all over the place, and just very reckless lifestyle, very manic, very out there. And so, a couple times she like took me and we moved to, South Scottsdale and lived in a crappy apartment and dealt with crappy boyfriends of hers, stuff like that for like a month maybe at the very most. And then she couldn't handle it and I'd go home. And so that was like that happened twice. So when I was 8 years old, my mother she was very what is it called? Abused, physically and emotionally, mentally abused by her boyfriend at the time. Like he would pick her up and throw her on the pavement, and she kept getting concussions. And she was already mentally, sick. And so I'm just, I wasn't even going to bring this up, but it was kind of like a little bit of background of how I was, of where I come from. But my mother went to prison for killing her boyfriend. Crazy, right? So, not self-defense, nothing. It was like second-degree murder. Pretty crazy back then. This was back in like 83 or 84, something like that. So I was 8 or 9 years old. And so she went to prison for about 7.5 years is what she served. So she got out when I was 16. But during that whole time when she was away, she called incessantly all day long, and was driving me insane. Like, because she's so manic. And so I got to get off. I have to get off the topic of her very quickly because I don't want to manifest her in my life. You know what I mean? Literally, this happens all the time. Whenever I talk about somebody, they will show up in my life out of the blue and tell me that this doesn't happen to you, because I know it does, because this is law of attraction. So let's get off that subject real quick. But so she drove me insane. Like I would fight with her because she was so hard to talk to. I would throw the phone. Remember the corded phones? I would throw the phone across the room and hit the wall. I was so angry with her because she was so out there, and like the stuff she said was insanely crazy and just so bad. Anyway, so she came back to live with us when I was 16. And then when I was 20, I moved out, moved in with a boyfriend, my first boyfriend at the time. And kind of like at 23 decided that I really don't want my mom in my life at all. So I kind of cut her out for a while, for many years. And anyway, but so also what was going on when I was young, at least I always say from 8. So I say my depression was like 8 to 28. And I don't think it has anything to do with my mom. I really don't. I did not have attachment with her. Like I was not attached to my mom. I was like, I can't say that I love her. Like I don't have that feeling for her. So I can like talk about my mom without having much emotion. So this whole thing was not hard on me. A lot of people would be like, oh my God, that's so tragic. A lot of therapists might say that, but it's like, it wasn't. I was not attached. I was attached to my grandmother. She raised me. So anyway, so I always say that my depression was like 8 to 28, but and then it was on and off for many years, because then, I got married at 39. So my depression came back and was not as bad, but it was still there. So it's much longer than 20 years. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I thought I had recovered, but not fully. Anyhow, but the worst part of my past, other than like my previous relationship, the worst part of it was that from kindergarten to 12th grade, I was bullied and teased every single day because of my weight. I was an overweight child. I was a big kid. And so that was the worst part. Like, I hated school. I was gone all the time. I was faking illness all the time just to stay home because it was so terrible. And just the kids were awful. And this was back then. Like, I thank the stars that this happened back then and not now. Like, I sit and sometimes watch stories of teasing and bullying right now, and it is just exponentially worse because of social media, because of texting, because of all of that. Is like, it is no joke now. Back when I was in the 80s, 90s, it would only happen when I went to school. So if I stayed home, I wasn't bullied or teased or anything. It was pretty nice. I was an only child too, so I was home a lot by myself. So that was the worst part, being teased and bullied about my weight, having every name thrown at me. Just, I felt like crap. Like, I was a big kid and I didn't like it. I was, very, very overweight. So anyway, so I graduated, and I'm going to skip a bunch of years. We don't need to talk about everything because there's really not. It's just normal. I went to college, majored in psychology. I was in undergrad for way too many years because I was depressed. So I changed my major at 20. I was an x-ray tech. I was in x-ray school for 6 months. My goal was to be an ultrasound tech. And I switched gears because at that time, healthcare professionals did not make much money. And I didn't want to live my life in a dark room. That's what I said. So the two things. And then as soon as I changed my major to psychology, the healthcare profession like blew up, and everybody started making lots of money. I thought it was quite humorous. So anyway, so I went to college. It took me 9 years to get my bachelor's degree. 9 years, because I kept having to drop out of classes. I kept failing some of my classes. I would take a semester off here and there because of my depression. Like, I was trying to hold a job, a part-time job, and go to school and deal with like not wanting to be here anymore. Like, just not feeling good. Like, just like, I don't even know the words anymore because it doesn't resonate with me. So this isn't going to be a very not very emotional talk because I don't resonate with that anymore. It's not like I can't even relate to it anymore. Does that make sense? It's like I'm so far removed from these emotions that I don't resonate with them. So good. But if I was, if I became famous, which, I don't have any problems becoming famous, but I'm not going to regurgitate my story of depression because then I'll get depressed one day. Not immediately, but one day. If I have to keep repeating my story, it will happen. And that's what people don't understand. They always say, well, then you're not over it. I'd be over it once I stop talking about it. Period. So it took me 9 years to get through my 4-year degree. And as soon as I felt good, like this would be my recovery part of my life, recovery from depression. I went through my 3-year master's program in 2 years. That's how good I felt. It's a 60-hour master's degree, and I did it in 2 years. I quit my job. I wasn't working, so I went to school majorly full-time. Loved it. Loved school at that point. Got my master's degree, and then I became a therapist. So that was that, and I was feeling really good. So then I became a therapist, and see, this is where I know I've had a couple epiphanies as I'm doing my podcast of like just kind of rehashing things, but I was feeling really, really good while I was in my master's program. I wasn't dealing with clients. I wasn't in the vibration. I wasn't in, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't, like, I did my internships at the end, but going to school, learning, taking the classes, all of that, that's all I did for 2 years. I felt great. I felt really, really great. I even like between there was 2 weeks between my graduating from my bachelor's degree and starting my master's program. I had 2 weeks, and you know what I did in that 2 weeks? I took my real estate classes full time, like full time, all day for 2 weeks, all day, like morning, noon, and night. I was like, it sounds manic, huh? But I wasn't. I was in the vortex, obviously. I was doing things I enjoyed doing, but I had so much energy and clarity, and I felt good. So I went to do my classes for that to be a licensed real estate agent. It was so we can buy our own house. That was the reason why I went to real estate classes, because you know, Miss Independent. I love doing everything myself. Yeah. So I did that, and then took the exam, passed. So that's what I did. So then I so then I did my master's program, graduated that with 4.0, and then got a job and worked, and I was feeling down again. This is what changed. This is what changed. I finally felt good. I was working towards my goals, feeling really great, doing things I loved doing, learning things I loved learning about. And then I started working in the field, working with clients all day long, mixing my vibration, activating my vibration, working with people who were also, almost everybody I worked with was on medication and much harder stuff than I was taking. I was rarely ever on antipsychotics. Gosh, no, depressants back then. I was rarely. Once in a while, I may try, like, go to a doctor and try something, and then it just didn't feel good, so I'd stop taking them. Taking supplements here and there, St. John's Wort a couple times. Like I would try stuff because I was kind of desperate and needed help. Saw a therapist here and there, very short term. But it wasn't until I went and worked with clients that I started feeling down again. The boyfriend I was with him for 14 years. Really good person. We're still like best friends right now. He was depressed. Of course he was depressed, because I was depressed when I met him. We attracted each other because we were both depressed. That's what happened, like attracts like. So it was just too much. As I was getting better, again, this was, so I left him in 2009. 2009? Yeah, 2009. And because he was just depressing. I had lost a bunch of weight. I was feeling good. I was working out every day, like walking an hour every night, feeling good. Having an up moment, right? I was still working my job. I loved my job because it had a lot of great benefits. So it helped a lot. I wasn't like, I was never how I feel now. Like now I feel really good. I rarely ever have like any like really down moments. I am thinking positive about 90% of the time, maybe 95. All of that. I'm doing things I love. I'm around people I love. Like I'm always focusing on being happy. So I've never felt like this before. So back then I struggled. It was like up and down, feeling good one day, feeling another day, feeling good. And then, really kind of balancing that. And then being around my boyfriend who was very negative. And eventually that just wore on me way too much that I didn't want to be with him anymore. So I left him. And so, trying to feel good, right? Trying to feel better. It's just that thing of, people aren't necessarily going to be in our lives forever, because if one person changes, the other one doesn't, you're just not connecting on a vibrational level. It's like, if I get better, the other person needs to get better too, or else it's like they vibrate away. I vibrate away. I do that. I get better and I vibrate away because I don't resonate with the person I'm with anymore. And the whole like struggle is to try to resonate with them, try to stay with them, try to make it work, right? I did that. Try to make things work because I didn't want to lose the person. But try to go down to their level of vibration brought me down, and it was too hard because I didn't want to be down there. I wanted to be at a joy. I wanted to feel joy. When a person wants to be at 22 and don't see a way out and they're just like blah blah blah, it doesn't feel good. So if you're a 1 or in that range 1, 2, 3 and you're with somebody who's a 22, it doesn't work, period. You either have to go, or you have to go down near their level of vibration to have any kind of resonance, right? It's vibration. Okay. So on and off struggling here and there, but feeling good at times. When I really take good care of myself, when I'm exercising, losing weight, getting into a healthier weight range, just working on myself more, the self-esteem, self-worth, progressing in my career, stuff like that made me feel better at times. But I was still working with clients who were 22. That's hard. So sometimes, it's hard. Sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes I'm just up that it doesn't matter that people, like my clients, have to rise to meet me because I'm not coming down. I've had lots of moments like that, lots and lots of days, weeks, years, that my clients had to rise to meet me because I was in a good mood. I was feeling good. I was blocking out everybody because I had a great job, So, so let's get into my previous relationship. I don't want to talk too much about that, but I met him, my ex-husband, right after I left my ex-boyfriend, within a few months. Like right after I left my ex-boyfriend, within a couple of months, I met Roger, my current husband, but we were just friends. So, and then I met my ex-husband, and it was rocky as you can, like, not as you can be. It was freaking rocky. It was rocky. Totally different personalities. Just, I look back, I'm like, I still kind of don't understand where that came from. I really don't. But whatever. I stood up for myself because, if we fought, like we broke up so many times, which was a big red flag because I never had a relationship like that. So I didn't go from like rocky, 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 rocky. I went from good. My ex-boyfriend was a good person. Still is a good person. Like I've always attracted good people to date. Except, well, he has his good points for sure. He has good moments. But, when one of the first times we broke up, of course he got drunk and he just texted me every nasty word in the book, like everything. And I had never had anybody speak to me like that before. Well, not like that. And so I got pissed and I'm like, you never talk to me like that again. Never. Because, and it was rare that he ever did again. It was rare, very rare moments. Because, I developed a lot of anger, which was useful because going up the emotional guidance scale, anger, let me pull out the book. Anger, I love anger, by the way. Okay, let's pull out the emotional guidance scale before I botch it up right now. I am looking it up. It's inside the book, Ask and It's Given. You can Google it. You can Google the emotional guidance scale if you don't know what the heck I'm talking about. I'm losing light. Okay. So any given day in my life, I am between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The lowest I ever feel is really 6, and that's hopefulness. So 1 is joy, knowledge, empowerment, freedom, love, appreciation. 2 is passion. 3 is enthusiasm, eagerness, happiness. 4 is positive expectation and belief. 5 is optimism. 6 is hopefulness. 7 is contentment. I would say, literally, like being in the vortex is like a 1 through 5. It's really like 1, 2, 3. Joy, passion, enthusiasm. That's how I've been feeling for the last few days. The reason? Because I'm doing things I absolutely love doing with no expectation of an outcome. That is Bashar. If you don't know who Bashar is, go look up Bashar. Go on YouTube. There's some Bashar on there. So I find learning from other sources, like from source, like the channelers. That's who I go to understand all of this stuff. Abraham, Bashar, Sanaya Roman. Now Sanaya is all books, and I was really gushing over Sanaya the last couple of days because I've got 6 of her books. I have 2 on my desk and 4 on my bookshelf right now. She's so good. So I like hearing because they all talk a little bit differently because they're different humans, right? And so sometimes you'll get something different. Now, I've had people tell me all the time that they get something different from other humans who are not channelers. And I'm like, no, because I guarantee you, because I have yet to meet anybody who's 100% Abraham or 100% source, infinite intelligence, except for me. Like, I don't know anybody. I personally don't know anybody. That's why I was so adamant to be a purist. That's why I call myself a purist of Abraham Hicks, because I don't gravitate to anything else. And I have a humongous psychology background, huge. And I don't go there because I know better. I know better to not go there. 2 doctorate programs. I don't go there. Nope, will not. I don't see the benefits. I see a little bit of different, I see a little bit of things that are similar, but not fully. So anyway, if you need to hear something different from a channeler, from a person who channels from source, right? Which we all do throughout our day. We're not like specifically channeling, but Bashar is really great. I just recently got into Bashar, probably within the last 2 months. And I love him. Just the sense of humor just cracks me up. Some people probably get super offended by him, but I find him really funny. Anyway, so if I'm at a 1, 2, 3 and I'm around somebody who's a 22. So 22 is fear, grief, depression, despair, powerlessness. It's just not going to, I'm going to be oblivious. I can't resonate. I can get down there if I choose to. Well, and choosing, it's not like, okay, well, I'm going to feel this way. Choosing would be putting my attention on it. Does that make sense? Now, see, some people will say, this is super common of like, oh, getting bogged down by your clients, that sort of thing. And a lot of people believe it's because, you're not protecting your energy. And it's like, no. So it's a choice of where do you put your attention? Do you put your attention on somebody who is sitting talking about their problems? Or are you putting your attention on seeing past their problems and seeing who they really are? Some people have that gift. That is a gift. Abraham probably says we're all capable of that. I have not found it. I have moments of it, but that's what makes me like, I at this point, I don't think I'm that great of a coach anymore. I'm a good teacher. I'm a really good teacher, but I've had 20 plus years of working with people, and I'm like, I don't know if it really, I think it gets, what Abraham says, it gets my goat too much. I'm an isolated type of person. So anyway, so the emotional guidance scale, so it's a choice to continue in a conversation with somebody who's a 22. And it's not the easiest job in the world to bring them up, to lift them up. You know how you try to brighten somebody's day, and it's nearly impossible if they don't allow it, if they don't choose to go there. So anyway, let's keep going. So anyhow, let me get to the point. We don't need to get into so many details. I dealt with a narcissistic partner. That's basically, so you guys all know that the label is pretty clear of what that looks like. I was somebody who had never dealt with that type of personality before, and so it threw me off. I thought of this the other day. It just threw me off so hard. And let me tell you, this is what's so freaking crazy, the crazy making of narcissism, right? I was a therapist working full time for many years. I was seeing other therapists. Like I had a couple therapists at the time. I had insurance at the time, so I was seeing a therapist, one or two therapists, and I could not figure out what my husband's problem was. I couldn't figure it out. Because therapists like to figure out people, and they like to label people if they come off as like abnormal, right? So we always like to label people with diagnoses. But there was literally something wrong, something up with this person, and I could not pinpoint it. You guys, after 7 years of a relationship of some sort, I did not know. I finally figured it out. It was after the relationship was way over. I found out what it was, and I found out it was narcissism. It was not mainstream back then. This was back in 09 to whatever, 15, 16. It wasn't as mainstream as it was. It was like literally mainstream right after that. And then because back then, like in my agency, we didn't really see much narcissism. We saw borderline all the freaking day, all day long. Borderline personality disorder, depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizoaffective, and schizophrenia, and borderline. That's what we saw. That was our daily stuff. Narcissism, very rarely. When you did find a narcissist, they were the most dangerous people in the agency. They like did so much damage to therapists' careers. So they were super rare, though. Now it's like, you can't walk down the street without running into a narcissist, right? Because it's so mainstream. So anyway, so that's what it boggled my mind for freaking years. I couldn't figure out what the personality clash was. It was beyond me, beyond my therapist, beyond anybody else I talked to, all the other therapists I was friends with. Nobody knew. It was not mainstream. No, we were not seeing narcissists at the time. So that was a huge clash. So because of that, because of the struggle, the massive struggle with dealing with one, like all the freaking crazy making, well, and it's literally, and I was on my soapbox back in 2016 of the person running for president, because I sat and listened to some of his speeches, and I'm like, he's a narcissist. Holy shit. Because I just got out of that relationship, and I'm like, and I just learned about it. And I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. So anyway, so he and I never really fully resonated because we clashed so hard with communication and with the way that I was spoken to. So anyway, it was freaking nuts. So because of that, I became very depressed, very, very, very depressed, more than probably I had been before. So, so I eventually went on antidepressants. I don't know when, some point at that point back then. And they helped. They helped to a point. They helped. So after the divorce, I was on them still. And there was at one point, I was increasing the dose. I was feeling kind of on edge, kind of anxious. And the only time I ever really felt anxiety was during that relationship because I was walking on eggshells. That's what freaking threw me off. I'm like, why do I constantly feel anxious? Constantly. It sucks. It was awful. I don't feel that way ever anymore. There's no reason to feel that way anymore. So there was one point. So this is where we're getting into how I cured my depression finally. After going through all that, and I shared this somewhere, I don't know where, shared this, that there was one point, I shared it in, I think, how I manifested my husband. How there was one point that I got so low that I did go to the ER because I just didn't want to be alive anymore. And that was probably in 2017, I think. It was in the summer. Yeah, 2017. And I found out that the guy that broke up my marriage, like thankfully broke up my marriage, was in love with someone else. And we had been talking for months, seeing each other, a couple times here and there, waiting to start dating. That's what I thought we were. We were waiting to start dating because, he wanted me to have some time to and not jump from my divorce to another relationship. And, we had known each other for years. We fell for each other, all that stuff. And it was just one drunk night that I found out that he was in love with somebody else who was also married and had kids and was pregnant, all this drama, stupid shit. So it was that moment that I was at my lowest point. I was just like floored. Like, I thought he was a really good guy. Well, I mean, he wasn't, because he wasn't totally, but, so I drove home completely wasted. And that was not good. That was not a good thing at all, but I didn't care. That was the problem. I didn't care. I drove 60 miles drunk. I mean, I had been drinking, so whatever. Like a lot. And I had a plan. It was the first time in my life I ever had a suicide plan. I finally figured out a way to do it that would work for me. But my grandmother I was taking care of my grandmother at the time. So she was home by herself that night. And I was driving home. It was in the morning. And I drove right to the ER, our local hospital up here. Went to the ER and was just like, I can't go home. I don't trust myself to be home. I was crying. I was just a mess. And that was the first time in my life I ever did that. Because as a therapist, here's the secret about being a therapist. You really cannot do that as a therapist. You'll lose your license. You can't go to the hospital for suicidal thoughts or a plan or anything like that. You will lose your license. So, and that's unfortunate, right? Of like the people and we're the ones who relate to clients the most because we understand how it feels, right? So all the years that I was depressed and licensed, I had to hold it together. Because I didn't want to go down that road of being hospitalized and go through the board. The board was really hard. I got a DUI back in 2009. And dealing with the board for a couple of years, having supervision for it was worse than going through the courts. Like that was a cakewalk going through That was the only time that ever happened, but it was harder. The board of counseling was much harder on me than anybody else was. So for 2, 3 years it went on. Um, so I went to the hospital, sat in an ER area, like bed, for 6 hours by myself, lights off, just kind of like trying to sleep it off. Finally, a mobile therapist came, talked to me for 1 hour. I felt great. I just felt great. It was like one of those times when I had been alone for a long time. I had no one to talk to, and I was holding it all in. Now I know this kind of sounds weird with the Abraham stuff, but path of least resistance was whatever that was to talk about everything. That's how it felt like, like when you vent, or not vent, when you talk about stuff. And now I know I don't, it says don't talk about stuff, but there's a time when you have to, when you're that much under pressure and have no support. I had no support whatsoever at that time. None. Once my ex-husband was gone and out of my life, I was 100% on my own, taking care of a bedridden, practically on hospice grandmother. No support whatsoever. None. Completely by myself for probably a couple of years. Changing her briefs every few hours, feeding her because she wasn't able to move her arms, like the whole thing. It was just the worst time ever because I had no one to help me, no one to, it was monotonous and hard, and day in, day out, day in, day out. It was awful. And during that time, I was trying to be a depression coach. Can you imagine? I was depressed, barely holding it together. But it was like, well, I was a therapist and my specialty was kind of depression at that time. And it was like, I got over it and now it's back because my situation is really sucky right now. And so all of that. So I, talked to the therapist, felt better, went home, and, I didn't talk to that guy. He checked in on me like a day later or something. That was it. And I didn't speak to him again for, I think, 2 years. Like that was the time when I cut everybody out. I was like, I'm done with, a lot of this BS. Yeah, I was done with the BS. I was done with, this is 2016. I was done. Yeah, this was 2016, summer 2016. I was starting to clean up house a little bit at that time with men. Not fully, but a little bit here and there. Trying to do better, trying to attract better. So anyway, so I was still on antidepressants for a while. Long story short, finally, what happened was I really didn't feel like I wanted to be on the antidepressant anymore. The one I was on, I was feeling like it wasn't helping me very much. I was feeling a little bit more on edge. I was feeling like this isn't working very well. And my desire was to get off my meds. Now I know what happens. All my clients, this is what happens. They feel good and then they go off their meds and then they end up in the hospital because they're off their meds. And they say they go off their meds because they're feeling good. And my thing was always like, well, you feel good because you're taking your meds. But I was on my meds and I didn't feel good. So over a little bit of time, I was getting inspired. So this is when things started shifting. Started getting inspired to look into over-the-counter supplements. Like I started having the ideas. This is before I knew anything about Abraham. But I started getting like, I wonder what all of these things are, because I've looked into them over the years. But so this is what I ended up doing. I did a lot of research into the over-the-counter medications, but I did a lot of research on like what the medication I was on, and I did a lot of research on the symptoms I was having. And I pulled out my psychopharmacology textbooks and I pulled out what the internet says about all these other supplements. And I developed my own um, what's it called? My own, what's it called? Regimen of supplements for my personal, like, what I felt I needed, doing a lot of research, So what I see is most people will just go to the pharmacy or go to the store or whatever and look at something like Sam E or St. John's wort or any number of things and see what the bottle says and then start taking them. I highly don't recommend doing that. Do not do that. Um, they are, they can be powerful. They can be powerful. Now, I know our mind is the most powerful aspect of it, but I've had some bad side effects. On many years ago, I took St. John's wort and I did pretty good. And then there was one time I went into stupid GNC or high health at the time. And the girl that was helping me, she's like, oh yeah, the dose is like 900 milligrams or whatever. I'm like, really? Because I've been taking 300. And she's like, yeah, no, it's 900. So I take 900 that day. And I dropped from feeling okay to feeling suicidal by midnight. I just felt so awful that I never touched it again. And I was so angry. And it's still the recommended dose, but it can be powerful. So I did all the research for me, and I take supplements every day, and I still do. And this is 4 years later. So I weaned myself off over 6 weeks of my. I was taking Celexa. I weaned myself, kept taking less and less and less over 6 weeks because my my psychiatrist, back when I was getting married, 2013, my psychiatrist, who was our psychiatrist at our agency, he prescribed all the therapists drugs. It's pretty crazy. I had told him that my husband and I wanted to get pregnant after we got married. And so he told me, and I said, I don't want to be on medication because this particular one doesn't seem to be good for pregnancy. And so he told me it was okay to stop taking them cold turkey. And it wasn't. And I stopped taking them the month that I was getting married. And that was a really hard month of getting married and being off my meds. That was really not cool. So anyway, so over 6 weeks, I stopped taking it. I started taking the ones that didn't interact with my medication. I started taking those. And then once the medication was out of my system, I started taking the last one because they didn't mix well. And I noticed that after I was taking them for a while. And then I realized I didn't feel good, researched it, and realized that they should not be taken together. So I did all the research and I felt so much better. And when I look back at this, like, medication can be the path of least resistance. And it was for me. So I felt inspired. I wanted to get off those meds and I wanted to go on something natural. And I did the research and it worked perfectly. It just worked so nicely. I felt so much better. And I still take those 2 today. Actually, I have to go and take them. I take them twice a day. And it's several different things. And magnesium is one of them. I take magnesium at night. So it's also vitamins and minerals. It's mostly vitamins and minerals that I take with a couple of other supplements for mental health. They're like literally minerals. Like I do B12, like really high dose of B12, magnesium at night. I take an amino acid. I take, if you want to know, I should put them. I don't tell people that often what I take because I want people to do their own research because, like I said, they can be powerful. And you really have to know what's best for you. There's not one pill that fits all. There is one, though. I want to say that, though. There is one that across the board pretty much helps everybody. And there's no side effects. And there's like, I've done the research on this one, and it should be given to every single person who has depression or bipolar. It's like the holy grail of over the counter supplements for mental health. Do you want to know what it is? This one thing could literally change your life. Now, I take a few other things with it, but for other things, it's not going to harm you. So none of them will harm you. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, this is not medical advice. This is not any kind of, this is what I do. And I highly suggest doing the research on anything that I say. But the one thing that across the board that everybody should probably try is lithium orotate. Lithium orotate. And orotate is OROTATE. Over the counter, super cheap. Super cheap. You can find it on Amazon. I order everything on Amazon. Lithium orotate. Now, you may hear lithium carbonate is the medication for bipolar disorder. And so don't get them confused because they're very different. Lithium is salt. Orotate is something else. I can't remember. It's been a long time. But lithium orotate is in very small doses. And lithium carbonate is in huge doses. Huge, 800 milligrams to 15 to 2,000 milligrams. Lithium orotate is like 5 micrograms. Lithium carbonate does not go through the blood-brain barrier in your brain. It can't get through. Carbonate does not let it go through. So that's why they have to prescribe very high doses. Lithium orotate does go through the blood-brain barrier. So you actually get that hit of lithium. The orotate with the lithium allows it to transport. Why the hell doesn't this get pressed? Well, it's not a pharmaceutical, right? So I'm not getting into that. I don't get into any of that crap. All I know is that it works. There's tons of testimonials online. Go look them up. But that one alone. But so what I did was I looked at my symptoms. One was lack of motivation. That was a huge one for me. Lack of motivation. Now you guys hear me and see me doing all kinds of things. Oh, and I published book number 2 today. The proof is coming on Saturday. The journal. I forgot to announce that, but I don't feel manic because I'm not a manic person. I'm not bipolar at all. Both my parents are bipolar or been diagnosed bipolar, but on 2 completely opposite ends of the spectrum. Very, very different people. But I've always just had that depression, that deep depression. So I'm just in the vortex and I have lots of energy and I'm doing a lot of things and I'm accomplishing things left and right because I'm in the vortex. I'm in the flow. Like everything's working out because I'm just in this flow. Okay, so that was a big piece of it. A big piece of my depression was the supplements because I was on medication, and being on medication for a few years and then trying to go off of them. I've tried it a few times. It was really difficult and not worth it to me. So having the inspiration to look into it, to find the right things, and boom, immediately start working so much better. So much, like night and day better than prescribed medication. Night and day. Night and day. If you are curious about supplements, message me. And I'll try to help you as much as, if I can. But That was a big piece of it. Now the other piece is what I've been talking about for weeks, right? Is the thinking process, the focus, the having self-discipline of intervening when you're going down a road that you need to not go down, right? When you're focused on something that gives you a lot of displeasure. Is that a word, displeasure? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like that is a big piece of it. Understanding how the universe works, understanding how law of attraction works. I cured my depression from law of attraction because I followed my inspiration to go off my medication and find something else, and it worked. That's law of attraction. See? I didn't know I was doing that. I was just following the thoughts that felt good, and they worked, right? Even though I was depressed, it didn't matter. I wanted to feel better. And I wanted to be off those meds because I just was feeling like this isn't working. I can't go any higher on this dose. That's not working. You know what I mean? Like I was trying to figure it out. The therapist side of me was trying to figure out what to do on the medication side. And I had an amazing doctor at that time. Our primary care doctor, he was my grandmother's doctor. He made home visits all the time. He was amazing. He actually was going to hire me to help with his pain management clients. I was still licensed at the time, so it was going to be one of those, like I could bill insurance to help his pain management people get off the pain meds. But so, that was part of it. The other part is the mind, is the thinking better thoughts, is the understanding that whatever you put your focus on is what you're going to get more of. So if you focus on the stories of your past, if you focus on the memories, if you focus on the previous relationships, if you focus on your childhood, if you focus on how awful your parents were, if you focus on any of that, you're going to feel like crap. The correlation's there, right? So what do? You focus on something else. It is that easy. Now, what I do understand is momentum on both ends. I understand the momentum of feeling insanely stuck, like you're in quicksand with negative emotion, and it feels like a humongous stretch to go from there up to a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, right? I really get that. I understand that so much. So much. Momentum. So check out any of the videos about moving up the emotional guidance scale with Abraham. Check out the ones about depression. Check out the ones, and it can be about anything because all you do is plug in your issue, right? Like there's this channel that I follow, and it was a couple days ago that they posted one about suicide and whatever. And it was from one of the live streams from Abraham. And they ended up doing, because the person was depressed and thinking suicidal thoughts. And part of the problem was lack of money. And so the climbing up the emotional ladder was about money in that instance. So whatever the issues that you're thinking about, you can find videos like that, no matter what the subject is that they're going up the emotional ladder. They're all amazing because they give you examples on how to do that. Like that's the work. Plug in the right thing. If it's money, then listen to that. If it's, something else, just fill in the blank. Moving up the emotional scale. Which means, like I said earlier, like anger is an amazing one. That's what I was looking up, where anger lands. Going from despair to anger is an amazing feeling. I'm looking up the scale again. And then I'm going to let you go soon because I know this is a long one. Hopefully it's helpful. I know I talked a lot about stuff definitely isn't as emotional as I've told it in the past because I'm just not there anymore. So I hope that's helpful, that you can go from feeling massively depressed, wanting to die. Actually, the week before my marriage ended, it was October 24th, 2015. I just happen to know the date because I remember it. I called my husband up, my ex husband. He was at work, or he called me on his break. And he's like, hey, what's going on? He was depressed as well. Very depressed person. Um, Unhappy, unsatisfied type, probably more. Um, Also an alcoholic with the narcissism. So yeah, that was new as well because my ex-boyfriend before him rarely ever drank. Rare. It was so rare. So yeah, the alcoholism and the narcissism, like what the fuck? Where did that come from? That was like blindsided me so hard, and it was just like unreal. And then probably the therapist mind of me is like trying to figure everything out, and that's probably why I was there for so long. But like what is this in front of me? I'm trying to diagnose you, and it's harder than hell. It's crazy, right? So um I told him on the phone that day, October 24th, that I just didn't want to be here anymore. I was really, really low. I really just didn't want to be there anymore, be here. And you know what he said to me? He said, me either. And it was just, what the hell? Neither one of us were happy. It was awful. So I think I had a drink. Like I didn't drink much at home. I still don't. Maybe once a month. I had a drink, or I went to get alcohol at the store because I don't have any at the house. I just don't. And he didn't drink at home. He always went out to drink. But so we really didn't have alcohol in the house. But so I went to get like vodka and OJ, which is my go-to. And I tried contacting someone else, the other guy, right? That ended up breaking up my relationship. Um, and he wasn't available. Like nobody was available to talk to. So I came home, had a drink, and just went to bed. That's all I did. Just had one drink and went to sleep. It was in the middle of the afternoon. And I was just like, I just didn't. So I took a nap. So then a week later, it was Halloween, that it just all ended. So anyway, oops. So I was talking about anger. I'm still looking for, I need to flag this page so I can find it easier. That's crazy how I can't find it. Oh, yeah. Here it is. Because 22 is fear, grief, depression, despair, powerlessness. 21 is insecurity, guilt, unworthiness. 20 is jealousy. 19 is hatred and rage. 18 is revenge. 17 is anger. So, like, going from 22 to 17 is a huge, nice jump. So, sometimes I could get there. When I was depressed, there'd be some moment that I would just get angry. And then I would like start cleaning the house. It was so productive. So I was going to say, I don't clean the house, right? I clean the house, but not like in my anger time like I used to. But moving up that emotional guidance scale, little by little, like actually studying this, understanding what Abraham says when they talk about this, moving up. Because you can't go from a 22 to a 1. You can't do it. It's too big of a jump. It's the exact same thing as like going from being poor, like no money at all, feeling despair about that, and then, getting $1 million next week or tomorrow or whatever, right? It's like too much of a vibrational gap. That's why on my one of my pages, like my millionaire manifestor page, I used to have some stuff people can opt in on and buy and stuff like that, and some affirmations and stuff like that. And everything was about being a millionaire. I did that for like a year, and then I learned more. So I, got better with this, that the affirmations could possibly be throwing people, off. So if a person who is like really in despair with money, saying, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire, is doing them a disservice. So I stopped. I stopped everything I was doing with like the opt in, with all of that, because I did not want to do anything that could be a disservice for anybody. Can you believe that? That's how much that I don't want to harm anybody. Like the money doesn't matter to me. I can't live with that conscience of like some of these affirmations could be making you worse, making your manifestation worse, making your feelings worse. But there, I mean, there's a ton of people out there who don't know this, and or I highly doubt that they do know this, but ones that do, still selling things that could, you know. So I put a stop to that. I just don't offer it anymore because I don't want people to go from feeling despair with money, reciting affirmations of I'm a millionaire. It's not helpful. So plug in the topic for you. Plug in the topic for you, whatever it is. If you're, don't go from a 22 to a 1 in your affirmations. Don't go from, you know, move up the emotional guidance scale before you use affirmations. I was listening to an Abraham this morning, and it was about relationships. And it was so clear that the reason why I manifested my husband, who is just amazing in every way, is because of all of the contrast and all of the rockets of desire that I had during my previous marriage. It's because of that. And like Abraham says, everything's always working out. And it was just like, it's like being one of the, feeling thankful for what happened, because I probably, because of that contrast, when contrast is really, really a lot for you, you put something really, really good in your vortex. And I did. And I did because of that relationship. Isn't that amazing? That's powerful. And it's like, who knows? If I wasn't with him, I probably wouldn't be with my ex, or I wouldn't be with my current husband, Roger. I probably wouldn't. Who knows? So, okay, guys, let me know if you have any questions. Leave them down below wherever you are. If there's any specific questions that you have, don't message me and say, how do I overcome my depression? I don't have answers. I'm going to send you back to this podcast, because sometimes people ask me questions that are so broad. I'm like, that's too big. Ask me a specific question. And like, what do I take for what's a good okay, I'm just going to tell you. If anybody's listening at the very end of this, I'm going to tell you what I take. And then if anybody messaged me, I'll say, just go to the very end of the podcast. Okay, so in my research, I found that I got to remember, because I just take them basically. What the hell is it called? It's an amino acid, L, right? Tyrosine. L-tyrosine. Tyrosine. So Tyrosine is good for motivation. L-tyrosine. So I take what do I take? Like 1,000 milligrams in the morning, 1,000 at night. That was over time. Don't start off that high. That was over time. I've been doing this for 4 years now, I think. I think January will be like 4 years. So like 500 once a day would be great, or whatever. You do your own research, please. So that's a good one for motivation. B12 is just really good for mood and other stuff. I don't know. Just do the research on it. I don't remember. It's been so long. Lithium orotate is just exceptional for depression and bipolar. The whole bipolar mania and down stuff, depression. God, Gosh, that's actually, and then I take magnesium at night for that's good for your mood and it's good for sleep. So don't take magnesium in the day. Take it at night, right before I go to bed. I take it. Right when I go to bed, I take it. And I also take HTP HTP3. What the hell is it called? See, this is literally I just order them on Amazon. I'm looking on Amazon right now. I just order everything on Amazon every few months and um I don't where'd it go? I'm looking it up right now. Magnesium, lithium orotate. L-tyrosine. I buy like 90 or 200 or whatever pills. Sorry for this. What's it called? HTP5. Jesus. HTP5. Now, this is the actual one that. Oh, they make it in gummies now? How bizarre. This is the one that you cannot take when you're taking other antidepressants. That was the one that you cannot because it like increases your serotonin or something, and which is what your medication already does. So it like makes it more, and that's not a good thing. Like you don't want more of everything. You know what I mean? Like you actually have to know what all of this does, and that's why I pulled out the psychopharmacology books, my textbooks. I had been a therapist for 12 years prior to the, you know what I mean? Like I have the background knowledge of, I worked with my psychiatrist, I worked with primary care physicians. So I had the experience and the knowledge to be able to figure this out myself. So that's why I'm telling you to do the research if this applies to you. If it feels like the path of least resistance, if it feels like a really good, solution for you. I've tried what's it called? The popular stuff that everybody's selling. I hate it. I cannot stand it. I don't recommend it ever. They made MLMs with it. Not hemp. What's the other one? Wish somebody could answer me while I'm asking you guys questions. What's the one? Multi-level marketing people have gotten into it like a few years ago. It's not, what the hell is it? It's not hemp. Like CBD oil. Hate it with a passion. It totally screwed me up one time. I took it with hopes because of the person that I bought it from. Oh, it just really super cured her depression, blah, blah, blah. So I started taking it and it screwed me over for like a month. That's why I say this stuff can be very powerful. That's why you have to be really careful with anything that you take. You just do. So I hate it. I hate when everybody else tries to sell it and say, oh, it's so healthy and it won't, have any adverse effects. It threw me so off of my life that I highly don't recommend it. Like highly. It's been a long time since I've even heard anybody. I don't know anybody who sells it anymore because I can't stand it. Like that's how much I don't like whatever I just said. It just really messed me up. So, and that's, similar to, not similar, but, a different side effect of another supplement. And then I did have a reaction to a medication over our prescribed medication as well in the past. Because I tried several, like most of the popular ones back in the day. Like these days, I don't have a clue what's popular. I don't have a clue what people take because I'm so far removed from it. But I truly believe in over-the-counter stuff of certain things that don't seem to be harmful, even though people say CBD oil is not harmful at all. Anything can be. So you just try try, do the research, see if it really fits with how you're feeling, if that's the road you want to go down. It doesn't have to be. You can just follow Abraham, focus on what you want to focus on, and call it a day. I've just been on the supplements for so long that I feel really good taking them. So, and a couple times I've tried to stop taking them that I didn't feel good. And then when I go back on them, I feel really good. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'll just keep taking them, but it's not really that big of a deal. So, okay, guys, I'm going to get going. I think I've spoke plenty, 1.5 hours. That's plenty. Let me know in the comment section if this is helpful, if there's anything else that you're interested in this area. Let me know. If there's anything that I haven't answered, let me know. If there's anything you want me to further expand upon, let me know. Not very emotional story, huh? Because I'm so far removed from it, which is really cool. I was really hoping for that, because I just don't feel close to it anymore, like any of my past. It's like really not, because I focus so much on the future. I focus all my attention on everything I'm doing. I don't sit and think about anything from my past anymore, ever. I'm always focused on what I'm doing right now, where, that's how I've been able to, just publish 2 books within 3 days, completely get them finished, formatted, finished, cover everything, because I'm focused on what it is that I want to do. I'm focused on what feels fun. I'm focused on the excitement of it. I'm focused on where I'm going. Okay, guys, have an amazing rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.